What if the secret to success isn't talent or luck, but something you can start doing today? Jim Rohn, one of the greatest personal development thinkers of our time, believed success is a journey, and I'm going to take you on that journey with me. Hi, and welcome to this deep dive into how you can transform your life with 6 timeless principles from Jim Rohn. If you've ever felt stuck, unfulfilled, or like you're chasing a version of success that doesn't feel right, then you're in the right place. Because today we're going to explore a roadmap to success that's not about quick fixes or overnight wins. It's about building a life of purpose, growth, and fulfillment, one step at a time. Let me start by sharing a story from my own life. A few years ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I had a good job, a steady paycheck, and a clear path to what I thought success looked like. A bigger house, a nicer car, a fancier title. Everyone around me kept saying, "You're doing great, you're on the right track." But deep down, I felt like something was missing. I was working long hours, always stressed, and constantly chasing the next thing that was supposed to make me happy. I'd hit a goal like getting a promotion and feel a brief moment of excitement, but then I'd go right back to feeling empty. I started asking myself, is this really what success is supposed to feel like? Am I even on the right path? That's when I discovered Jim Rohn. If you're not familiar with him, Jim Rohn was a legendary motivational speaker, author, and personal development coach who inspired millions of people, including some of today's biggest names like Tony Robbins. Jim started his career as a farm boy in Idaho, worked his way up through direct sales, and eventually became one of the most influential voices in personal growth. What I love about Jim is that he didn't just talk about success, he lived it, and he broke it down into practical, actionable principles that anyone can follow. He believed that success isn't a gift bestowed upon us, it's a garden cultivated through consistent effort, intentional choices, and a commitment to growth. Jim Rohn's philosophy can be summed up in 6 key principles that form the milestones of our journey today. First, there's personal discipline, the idea that small, consistent actions lead to big results over time. Then, there's self-reflection, the practice of evaluating your actions and decisions to ensure you're on the right path. Next, we have continuous learning, the commitment to investing in yourself through education and new knowledge. After that, we'll explore the influence of relationships, how the people around you shape your growth. Then, we'll talk about setting clear goals, having a roadmap to guide your actions. And finally, we'll dive into personal responsibility, the empowering truth that you are in control of your own destiny. Think of these 6 principles as milestones on a journey to success. We'll start at the beginning, with the call to embark on this journey, and as we go, we'll stop at each milestone to explore Jim Rohn's teachings, reflect on how they apply to our lives, and discover practical ways to put them into action. Along the way, I'll share stories from my own life, insights from Jim's philosophy, scientific research, exercises you can do while you listen, and examples of others who've followed this path. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap to transform your life, no matter where you're starting from. Over the next few hours, we're going to walk this journey together, step by step, milestone by milestone. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, we might even shed a tear or two, but most importantly, we'll grow. And by the time we reach our destination, you'll have a new perspective on what success really means and a practical plan to make it your reality. So, are you ready to take the first step? Let's start our journey with the first milestone, personal discipline. Why does Jim Rohn call it the foundation of success? Let's find out. Success doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from the small actions you take every day. Jim Rohn called this personal discipline, and it's the first milestone on our journey to a better life. When I first heard Jim talk about discipline, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. I wanted success to be easy, to come from a single breakthrough or a stroke of luck. But Jim's words hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day." That idea, that success is built through small, consistent actions, changed the way I thought about my goals, my habits, and my life. Let's break this down. Jim Rohn believed that discipline is the foundation of success because it's the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It's not about making huge, dramatic changes overnight. It's about doing the little things consistently, day after day, until they add up to something extraordinary. Think about it like planting a garden. You don't plant a seed and expect a full-grown tree the next day. You water it, you nurture it, you give it sunlight, and over time, it grows into something beautiful. That's what discipline does for your life. It's the daily watering, the daily nurturing, that turns your dreams into reality. Jim often used the example of health to illustrate this point. He'd say, if you want to be healthy, it's not about going on a crash diet for a week. It's about eating a little better every day, exercising a little every day, resting a little better every day. Those small disciplines, choosing an apple over a donut, taking a 10-minute walk, going to bed on time, don't seem like much in the moment, but over months, years, decades, they compound into a life of vitality and energy. The same principle applies to every area of your life, your career, your relationships, your personal growth. Small disciplines, practiced consistently, lead to big results. There's science to back this up too. In the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, there's a concept called the 1% improvement principle. The idea is that if you get just 1% better at something every day, those tiny improvements compound over time. For example, if you improve by 1% every day for a year, you don't just get 365% better, you get over 37 times better because of the power of compounding. That's what Jim Rohn was talking about when he said success comes from simple disciplines, practiced every day. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. I've seen this principle play out in my own life, and it's been a game changer. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to write a book. I'd always dreamed of being an author, but every time I thought about writing, I'd get overwhelmed. I'd think, a book is 50,000 words. That's so much. I'll never have time to write that. So I'd procrastinate, telling myself I'd start when I had a big chunk of time, like a weekend or a vacation. But that time never came, and months went by with no progress. Then I heard Jim Rohn talk about discipline, and I decided to try a different approach. I committed to writing just 100 words a day. That's about a paragraph, something I could do in 10 minutes, even on my busiest days. At first, it didn't feel like much. I'd write my 100 words and I'd think, this is nothing, I'm never going to finish a book at this rate. But I stuck with it day after day. Some days I'd write more, maybe 200 or 300 words, but I never let myself skip a day. After a month, I had 3,000 words. After 6 months, I had 18,000 words. And after a year, I had over 36,000 words, more than enough for a first draft. That small discipline, writing 100 words a day, turned my dream of writing a book into a reality. And the best part, it didn't feel hard. It felt manageable, because I wasn't trying to do it all at once. I was just showing up day after day. That's the power of personal discipline. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be consistent. Jim Rohn used to say, we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is temporary. It's the discomfort of waking up early, saying no to distractions or sticking to your commitments. But the pain of regret, that lasts a lifetime. It's the feeling of looking back and wishing you'd started sooner, tried harder, or stayed consistent. I don't know about you, but I'd much rather deal with the temporary pain of discipline than the lifelong pain of regret. So how can you start building personal discipline in your own life? Let's do a quick exercise together. I want you to think of one small action you can take every day to move toward a goal you care about. Maybe you want to get healthier. Your action could be drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. Maybe you want to grow your career. Your action could be reading one page of a professional development book each day. Maybe you want to improve your relationships. Your action could be sending a kind text to a loved one every morning. Whatever it is, make it small, make it specific, and make it something you can do every day, no matter what. Got your action in mind? Great. Now, I want you to commit to doing that action every day for the next week. Set a reminder on your phone, write it on a sticky note, do whatever it takes to make sure you don't forget. And here's the key. Don't worry about the results right now. Don't stress about how long it'll take to reach your goal. Just focus on showing up day after day and trust that those small actions will add up over time. That's what personal discipline is all about, building success, one step at a time. As we move forward on our journey, you'll see how this foundation of discipline sets the stage for everything else. Because discipline gives us the consistency to grow, but how do we know if we're growing in the right direction? That's where the next milestone comes in, self-reflection. Let's keep walking this path together and explore how evaluating our actions can help us stay on track. You can't grow if you don't know yourself. Jim Rohn believed self-reflection is the key to unlocking your potential, and it's the second milestone on our journey to success. When I first started practicing personal discipline, like writing those 100 words a day I told you about, I noticed something interesting. Some days I'd feel amazing, like I was making real progress, but other days I'd feel stuck, like I was just going through the motions. I started wondering, am I even doing this right? Am I focusing on the right things? That's when I realized I needed to take a step back and reflect, not just on what I was doing, but on why I was doing it and how it was working. Jim Rohn often said, the more you know about yourself, the more you can do with your life. Self-reflection is the process of looking inward, evaluating your actions, your decisions, your habits, and your goals, and asking yourself, is this working? Am I on the right path? What can I do better? It's like checking the map on a long journey. You wouldn't just keep walking without ever looking to see if you're going in the right direction, would you? Self-reflection helps you make sure you're not just busy, but that you're busy doing the right things. For Jim, self-reflection was a daily practice. He'd often talk about keeping a journal where he'd write down his thoughts, his successes, his failures, and his plans for the future. He believed that by taking time to reflect, you can identify your strengths, what's working well, and your weaknesses, what needs to improve. And once you know those things, you can adjust your course, make better decisions, and keep growing. Jim used to say, don't just go through the day, get from the day. In other words, don't let your days pass by without learning something, without growing, without taking a moment to reflect on what you've experienced. There's a lot of science to support this idea. Research on mindfulness and self-awareness shows that regular reflection can improve mental clarity, reduce stress, and even boost productivity. For example, a study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that people who spent just 15 minutes a day journaling about their experiences reported higher levels of self-awareness and lower levels of stress compared to those who didn't. Why? Because reflection helps you process your emotions, understand your patterns, and make sense of your experiences. It's like hitting the pause button on life and giving yourself a chance to catch up with yourself. I've experienced the power of self-reflection firsthand, and it's been transformative. A couple of years ago, I was feeling really stuck in my career. I was working hard, putting in long hours, but I wasn't seeing the progress I wanted. I kept thinking, I'm doing all the right things. Why isn't this working? So I decided to take Jim Rohn's advice and start journaling. Every evening, I'd spend 10 minutes writing down 3 things: what went well that day, what didn't go well, and one thing I could do better tomorrow. At first, it felt a little awkward. I wasn't used to writing about my feelings or analyzing my day like that. But after a few weeks, I started noticing patterns. One thing that kept coming up in my journal was that I was spending a lot of time on tasks that didn't really matter, like answering emails or attending meetings that weren't moving me closer to my goals. I also realized I had a limiting belief. I thought I had to say yes to every opportunity, even if it wasn't a good fit, because I was afraid of missing out. That reflection was a wake-up call. I started saying no to things that didn't align with my goals, and I focused my energy on the tasks that really mattered, like building relationships with clients and working on high-impact projects. Within a few months, I started seeing real progress in my career, not because I was working harder, but because I was working smarter, thanks to the insights I gained from self-reflection. Let's take a moment to try a self-reflection exercise together. Grab a notebook or open a notes app on your phone, and let's do a quick journaling session. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I want you to write down your answers as honestly as you can. Ready? Here's the first question. What's one thing that's going well in your life right now? Maybe you're proud of a habit you've built, a relationship that's thriving, or a goal you're making progress on. Take a moment to write that down. Got it? Great. Now here's the second question. What's one thing that's not going well, or that you'd like to improve? Maybe you're struggling with procrastination, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or there's a goal you've been putting off. Write that down too. And finally, the third question, what's one small action you can take tomorrow to improve that area? It doesn't have to be big, just something small and doable, like setting a timer to focus for 20 minutes, or reaching out to a friend you've been meaning to connect with. Write down that action. How did that feel? Even just taking a few minutes to reflect can give you so much clarity. And here's the best part. The more you do this, the better you get at it. Jim Rohn used to say, if you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree. Self-reflection gives you the power to change your course, to adjust your sails, and to keep moving toward the life you want. It's like having a compass on this journey to success. It helps you stay on track, even when the path gets bumpy. As we continue our journey, you'll see how self-reflection builds on the foundation of discipline we talked about in the last section. Discipline gives us the consistency to take action every day, and self-reflection helps us make sure those actions are leading us in the right direction. But to keep growing, we need to keep learning, and that's where the next milestone comes in: continuous learning. Let's take the next step together and explore how investing in yourself can take you further on this journey. Jim Rohn said, "Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune." That's the third milestone on our journey to success: continuous learning. Now that we've built a foundation of discipline and added the compass of self-reflection, it's time to equip ourselves with the knowledge and skills we need to keep growing. Because here's the truth: the world is always changing, and if you're not learning, you're falling behind. Jim Rohn believed that investing in yourself through continuous learning is one of the most powerful things you can do to create a successful life. And I couldn't agree more. Let's start with what Jim meant by self-education. He wasn't just talking about going back to school or getting another degree, although those things can be valuable. He was talking about taking responsibility for your own growth, seeking out knowledge, and constantly expanding your mind. Jim often shared his own story to illustrate this point. When he was in his early 20s, he was working as a stock clerk, barely making ends meet and feeling stuck. He'd gone to college for a year but dropped out, thinking he didn't need more education. But then he met a mentor, Earl Schaff, who introduced him to the world of personal development. Earl told Jim, "If you want things to change, you have to change. If you want things to get better, you have to get better." That advice lit a fire in Jim, and he started devouring books, attending seminars, and learning everything he could about success, leadership, and personal growth. That commitment to self-education transformed Jim's life. Within a few years, he went from being a broke stock clerk to a successful entrepreneur and speaker, sharing stages with some of the biggest names in the world. And he never stopped learning. Jim used to say, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." He believed that the more you learn, the more you can earn, and not just in terms of money, but in terms of opportunities, relationships, and fulfillment. Continuous learning keeps you competitive, adaptable, and ready for whatever life throws your way. I've seen the power of continuous learning in my own life too. A few years ago, I decided I wanted to improve my public speaking skills. I'd always been terrified of speaking in front of people. I'd get sweaty palms, my voice would shake, and I'd forget everything I wanted to say. But I knew that if I wanted to grow my career and share my ideas with the world, I needed to get better at it. So I took Jim Rohn's advice and started investing in myself. I signed up for a public speaking course, started reading books like Talk Like TED by Carmine Gallo, and watched videos of great speakers to learn their techniques. I also joined a local Toastmasters club, where I could practice speaking in a supportive environment. At first, it was really hard. I'd stumble through my speeches, forget my lines, and feel like I wasn't making any progress. But I kept at it, learning a little more each week, practicing a little more each month. And over time, something amazing happened. I started to get better. I stopped shaking, I found my voice, and I even started to enjoy speaking in front of people. Last year, I gave a presentation at a conference in front of 200 people, and I got a standing ovation. That never would have happened if I hadn't committed to continuous learning. It wasn't about being naturally talented. It was about showing up, learning, and growing one step at a time. There's a lot of research to support the benefits of continuous learning too. A study by the Harvard Business Review found that employees who spend time learning new skills are more engaged, more productive, and more likely to stay with their companies. And it's not just about work. Learning has benefits for your brain too. Research from the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience shows that learning new things, like a language, a skill, or even a hobby, can improve memory, increase neuroplasticity, and even reduce the risk of cognitive decline as you age. In other words, learning doesn't just make you better at what you do, it makes you better, period. So, how can you start incorporating continuous learning into your life? Jim Rohn had a few practical suggestions that I've found really helpful. First, he recommended reading books, lots of them. Jim used to say, "All the secrets to success are hidden in books, waiting for you to find them." He suggested reading at least 10 pages a day, which adds up to about 12 books a year. That's 12 new ideas, 12 new perspectives, 12 new ways to grow. If you're not sure where to start, some of Jim's favorite books were classics like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. But you can pick any book that interests you, whether it's about personal growth, business, history, or even fiction. The point is to keep your mind active and growing. Another suggestion from Jim was to attend seminars and workshops. These days, you don't even have to leave your house. There are so many online courses and webinars available, often for free or at a low cost. Platforms like Coursera, Udemy, and even YouTube are full of incredible resources. For example, if you want to learn about marketing, you can find a course on digital marketing in a few clicks. If you want to learn a new language, apps like Duolingo make it easy and fun. The key is to find something you're curious about and dive in. Finally, Jim suggested seeking out mentors and learning from people who are where you want to be. This could be someone in your industry, a friend who's achieved a goal you admire, or even a virtual mentor through books, podcasts, or videos. For me, Jim Rohn has been a virtual mentor. I've never met him, but his teachings have guided me every step of the way on this journey. Let's take a moment to think about how you can start a learning habit in your own life. Here's a quick challenge for you. I want you to pick one thing you'd like to learn more about. Maybe it's a skill, like photography or coding. Maybe it's a topic, like mindfulness or financial planning. Whatever it is, write it down. Now commit to spending just 10 minutes a day learning about that topic. You can read a book, watch a video, listen to a podcast, whatever works for you. The goal isn't to become an expert overnight. It's to start the habit of learning, to keep your mind growing and to invest in yourself every day. As we move forward on our journey, you'll see how continuous learning builds on the foundation of discipline and self-reflection. Discipline gives us the consistency to show up every day. Self-reflection helps us make sure we're on the right path, and learning equips us with the knowledge and skills to keep growing. But there's another piece to this puzzle: the people we surround ourselves with. That's the next milestone on our journey, the influence of relationships. Let's keep walking this path together and explore how the people around us shape our growth. Jim Rohn said, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That's the 4th milestone on our journey to success, the influence of relationships. Now that we've built a foundation of discipline, added the compass of self-reflection, and equipped ourselves with continuous learning, it's time to look at the people around us. Because here's the truth: the people you surround yourself with have a huge impact on your growth, your mindset, and your success. Jim Rohn believed that if you want to grow, you need to surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and push you to be better. And I've found that to be so true in my own life. Let's start with what Jim meant by this idea. When he said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, he was talking about the power of influence. The people around you shape your attitudes, your habits, your beliefs, and even your dreams. If you spend your time with people who are negative, who complain all the time, who don't have any ambition, you're likely to adopt those same traits. But if you surround yourself with people who are positive, who are driven, who are always learning and growing, you'll start to take on those qualities too. Jim used to say, "Don't join an easy crowd, go where the expectations are high." In other words, Surround yourself with people who challenge you to be your best self. I've seen this play out in my own life, and it's been a powerful lesson. A few years ago, I was hanging out with a group of friends who were, let's just say, not very motivated. They were the kind of people who'd spend their weekends binge-watching TV, complaining about their jobs, and talking about how life was unfair. At the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. I'd known them for years, and they were fun to be around. But over time, I started noticing something. I was becoming like them. I'd catch myself complaining more, procrastinating on my goals, and settling for less than I knew I was capable of. It wasn't until I started listening to Jim Rohn that I realized how much my environment was holding me back. Jim's words hit me hard. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I took a hard look at my circle and asked myself, are these the people I want to be the average of? Are they pushing me to grow, or are they keeping me stuck? That realization was a turning point for me. I decided to make a change, not by cutting those friends out of my life completely, but by being more intentional about who I spent my time with. I started seeking out people who inspired me, people who were doing the things I wanted to do. I joined a local entrepreneurship group where I met other people who were passionate about personal growth and building their own businesses. I started going to meetups, attending workshops, and connecting with people online who shared my goals. And let me tell you, the difference was night and day. Surrounding myself with people who were driven, who were always learning, who believed in themselves, it lit a fire in me. I started taking my goals more seriously. I felt more motivated, and I even started seeing opportunities I'd never noticed before. It was like I'd upgraded my entire mindset just by upgrading my environment. There's a real-life example of this principle in action that I love to share. It's the story of a woman named Sarah, who I met at one of those entrepreneurship meetups. Sarah had always dreamed of starting her own business, a bakery that specialized in gluten-free desserts. But for years, she'd been stuck. She was surrounded by friends and family who didn't believe in her dream. They'd say things like, "That's too risky," or "Why don't you just stick with your day job?" Over time, those voices started to get to her, and she began to doubt herself. She'd tell herself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this." But then Sarah decided to make a change. She started attending meetups and networking events where she met other entrepreneurs who were chasing their dreams. She found a mentor who'd started her own food business, and she joined a mastermind group where she could share her ideas and get feedback. Being around people who believed in her, who encouraged her, who challenged her to think bigger, it completely shifted her mindset. Within a year, Sarah had launched her bakery, and today it's thriving. She told me, "I never would have done it if I hadn't changed my environment. The people around me gave me the courage to believe in myself." That's the power of relationships. They can either hold you back or propel you forward. Let's take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. I want you to think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your closest friends, family members, colleagues, whoever it is. Write down their names if you can. Now, for each person, ask yourself, is this person inspiring me to grow? Are they positive, driven, supportive, or are they negative, complacent, or holding me back? Be honest with yourself. There's no judgment here. This is just about awareness. If you notice that some of the people in your circle aren't supporting your growth, that doesn't mean you have to cut them out of your life. But it does mean you might need to spend less time with them and more time with people who lift you up. Jim Rohn used to say, "You don't have to change your friends, but you do have to change your association." In other words, you can still love the people in your life, but you might need to be more intentional about who you let influence you. Seek out mentors, join communities, find friends who share your goals. Even if it's online, like joining a Facebook group or following inspiring people on social media, those connections can make a big difference. There's a deeper philosophical idea here that I think is worth reflecting on: the power of community and personal growth. Humans are social creatures. We're wired to connect, to learn from each other, to grow together. In ancient times, our survival depended on our tribe. If you were part of a strong, supportive tribe, you had a better chance of surviving. If you were on your own, you were vulnerable. The same principle applies today, but instead of physical survival, It's about emotional and personal survival. When you surround yourself with a tribe that supports your growth, you're more likely to thrive. When you're surrounded by people who drag you down, you're more likely to struggle. So choose your tribe wisely. It's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. As we continue our journey, you'll see how relationships build on the milestones we've already covered. Discipline gives us the consistency to show up every day. Self-reflection helps us make sure we're on the right path. Continuous learning equips us with the knowledge to grow, and relationships provide the support and inspiration to keep going. But to make sure we're moving in the right direction, we need a map, and that's where the next milestone comes in: setting clear goals. Let's take the next step together and explore how having a clear vision can guide us towards success. Without a map, how do you know where you're going? Jim Rohn believed clear goals are the roadmap to success, and that's the fifth milestone on our journey. Now that we've built a foundation of discipline, added the compass of self-reflection, equipped ourselves with continuous learning, and surrounded ourselves with supportive relationships, it's time to get clear on where we're headed. Because here's the truth: you can be the most disciplined, reflective, knowledgeable person in the world, but if you don't know where you're going, you're just wandering. Jim Rohn used to say, "Goals are the fuel in the furnace of achievement," and I've found that to be so true in my own life. Let's start with what Jim meant by setting clear goals. He believed that goals give you direction, motivation, and a sense of purpose. They're like a map for your life. They tell you where you're going and help you figure out how to get there. Jim often talked about the importance of writing your goals down, making them specific, and giving yourself a timeline to achieve them. He'd say, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. That idea, that you have to take control of your own path, really resonated with me. I remember the first time I set a clear goal for myself. It was a few years ago when I decided I wanted to run a half marathon. I'd never been a runner. I was the kind of person who'd get winded walking up a flight of stairs. But I'd always admired people who could run long distances, and I wanted to see if I could do it too. So I sat down and wrote out my goal. I will run a half marathon in 6 months. I made it specific. I picked a race. I knew the distance, 13.1 miles, and I gave myself a deadline. Then I broke it down into smaller steps. I'd start by running 1 mile 3 times a week and gradually increase my distance each month. At first it was really hard. My legs hurt, I was out of breath, and I felt like giving up every time I laced up my sneakers. But having that clear goal kept me going. Every time I wanted to quit, I'd remind myself, I'm training for a half marathon. I can't stop now. And because I'd written it down and made it specific, it felt real, like something I had to do. 6 months later, I crossed the finish line of that half marathon, and I'll never forget the feeling of accomplishment. It wasn't just about running 13.1 miles. It was about proving to myself that I could set a goal, work toward it, and achieve it. That experience taught me the power of clear goals, and I've been setting them ever since. There's science to back this up too. Research on goal setting shows that people who set specific, challenging goals are more likely to achieve them than those who don't. A study by psychologists Edwin Locke and Gary Latham, who developed goal-setting theory, found that specific goals, like I will write 500 words a day, lead to better performance than vague goals, like I'll try to write more. Why? Because specific goals give you clarity and focus. They tell you exactly what you need to do, and they make it easier to track your progress. Locke and Latham also found that goals are most effective when they're challenging but achievable, and when you get feedback along the way, like checking off a milestone or reflecting on your progress. Jim Rohn had a simple process for setting goals that I've found really helpful. First, he said to write down everything you want to achieve, your dreams, your aspirations, big and small. Don't hold back. Let your imagination run wild. Want to start a business? Write it down. Want to travel the world? Write it down. Want to learn to play the guitar? Write it down. Then go through your list and pick a few goals that excite you the most, maybe 3 or 4 to start with. For each goal, make it specific. What exactly do you want to achieve? By when? What steps will you take to get there? Finally, review your goals regularly. Jim suggested looking at them every day to keep them top of mind and stay motivated. Let's try this process together with a quick goal-setting exercise. Grab a piece of paper or open a notes app on your phone and let's set a goal right now. First, I want you to think of one thing you'd love to achieve in the next year. It could be anything: a personal goal, a professional goal, a health goal, a relationship goal. Maybe you want to save $5,000 or learn a new skill or spend more quality time with your family. Whatever it is, write it down. Now let's make it specific. For example, if your goal is to save money, you might write, "I will save $5,000 by December 31st of this year by setting aside $420 each month." If your goal is to learn a new skill, you might write, "I will learn to play 5 songs on the guitar by June 1st by practicing for 15 minutes a day." Be as clear as you can. What exactly do you want to achieve and by when? Next, break it down into smaller steps. What's one thing you can do this week to move toward that goal? Maybe it's opening a savings account, or signing up for a guitar class, or scheduling a family game night. Write down that first step and commit to doing it in the next 7 days. And finally, put your goal somewhere you'll see it every day. On your fridge, on your desk, as a reminder on your phone. That way, it'll stay top of mind, and you'll be more likely to take action. How does that feel? Having a clear goal gives you a sense of direction, doesn't it? It's like having a map on this journey to success. It tells you where you're going and helps you figure out how to get there. And as we'll see in the next section, the people around you can help you stay on track as you work toward your goals. But to achieve them, you need to take ownership, and that's where the final milestone comes in: personal responsibility. Let's keep walking this path together and explore how taking control of your destiny can bring you closer to the life you want. Jim Rohn said, "You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, but you can change yourself." That's the 6th and final milestone on our journey to success: personal responsibility. Now that we've built a foundation of discipline, added the compass of self-reflection, equipped ourselves with continuous learning, surrounded ourselves with supportive relationships, and mapped out our path with clear goals, it's time to take ownership of our journey. Because here's the truth: no one is coming to save you. If you want to create the life of your dreams, you have to take responsibility for making it happen. And Jim Rohn believed that's one of the most empowering things you can do. Let's start with what Jim meant by personal responsibility. He believed that you are the architect of your own life. Your circumstances, your past, your challenges, they don't define you. What defines you is what you do with them. Jim used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills." In other words, stop blaming your circumstances for where you are and start taking responsibility for where you're going. That mindset shift, from victim to victor, is what personal responsibility is all about. I've seen the power of this principle in my own life, and it's been a game changer. A few years ago, I went through a really tough time. I'd just lost my job due to a company downsizing, and I was struggling to find a new one. I felt like a failure, like I'd let myself down, let my family down, let everyone down. For a while, I played the blame game. I'd tell myself, "It's not my fault. The economy is bad, the job market is tough, my boss didn't appreciate me." I'd sit on the couch feeling sorry for myself, waiting for something to change. But then I heard Jim Rohn talk about personal responsibility, and it was like a wake-up call. He said, "You must take personal responsibility for your life. You cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself." I realized that sitting around waiting for the job market to get better wasn't going to help me. I had to take control of my own destiny. So I decided to stop making excuses and start taking action. I updated my resume, started reaching out to my network, and signed up for online courses to learn new skills that would make me more marketable. I also started a side hustle, freelancing as a writer, to bring in some income while I looked for a full-time job. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I wanted to give up. But taking responsibility for my situation gave me a sense of power I'd never felt before. I wasn't waiting for someone else to fix my problems. I was fixing them myself. Within a few months, I landed a new job that was even better than the one I'd lost, and my side hustle started to take off too. That experience taught me that personal responsibility isn't just about taking action, it's about taking ownership of your mindset, your choices, and your results. It's about saying, I'm in control of my life, and I'm going to make it what I want it to be. There's a deeper philosophical idea here that I think is worth reflecting on. The freedom that comes with responsibility. When you blame your circumstances for where you are, you're giving away your power. You're saying, I can't change my life because of this thing outside of me. But when you take responsibility, you take back that power. You're saying, I can change my life no matter what. That's true freedom. The freedom to create, to grow, to become the person you want to be. Jim Rohn used to say, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the gift of personal responsibility. And I couldn't agree more. So how can you start taking more responsibility in your own life? Let's do a quick exercise together. I want you to think of one area of your life where you've been making excuses, where you've been blaming your circumstances instead of taking action. Maybe you've been saying, I can't get healthy because I don't have time to exercise, or I can't start a business because I don't have enough money, or I can't improve my relationship because my partner won't change. Whatever it is, write it down. Now, I want you to reframe that excuse into a statement of responsibility. For example, if you wrote, I can't get healthy because I don't have time to exercise, reframe it as, I will make time to exercise because my health is a priority. If you wrote, I can't start a business because I don't have enough money, reframe it as, I will start small and find creative ways to build my business with the resources I have. Write down that new statement and let it sink in. How does it feel to take responsibility for that area of your life? It's empowering, isn't it? As we wrap up this milestone, you'll see how personal responsibility ties together everything we've covered on this journey. Discipline gives us the consistency to show up every day. Self-reflection helps us make sure we're on the right path. Continuous learning equips us with the knowledge to grow. Relationships provide the support to keep going. Goals give us direction, and responsibility ensures we take ownership of the journey. Now that we've reached the final milestone, let's take a moment to reflect on our journey as a whole. What does a life built on these principles look like? Let's find out. Imagine a life where every small action, every reflection, every relationship, and every goal brings you closer to your dreams. That's the life Jim Rohn's principles can help you build, and we've just walked that journey together. Over the past few hours, we've explored 6 timeless principles that form a roadmap to success: personal discipline, self-reflection, continuous learning, the influence of relationships, setting clear goals, and personal responsibility. Each milestone has built on the last, creating a path to a life of purpose, growth, and fulfillment. And now, as we reach our destination, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we've learned and give you a practical plan to apply these principles in your own life. Let's start by recapping our journey. We began with personal discipline, the idea that small, consistent actions lead to big results over time. Jim Rohn taught us that success isn't about one big moment. It's about showing up every day, doing the little things that move you forward. We saw how discipline is the foundation of success, like the daily watering that helps a garden grow. Then, we moved to self-reflection, the practice of evaluating your actions and decisions to make sure you're on the right path. We learned that reflection is like a compass on this journey, helping us stay on track and grow in the right direction. Next, we explored continuous learning, the commitment to investing in yourself through education and new knowledge. Jim Rohn showed us that self-education is the key to staying competitive, adaptable, and ready for whatever life throws your way. After that, we looked at the influence of relationships, how the people around us shape our growth. We learned that surrounding ourselves with people who inspire and challenge us can propel us forward, while negative influences can hold us back. Then, we talked about setting clear goals, the roadmap that gives us direction and motivation. We saw how specific written goals can turn our dreams into reality, one step at a time. And finally, we reached personal responsibility, the empowering truth that we are in control of our own destiny. We learned that taking ownership of our choices and results gives us the freedom to create the life we want. For me, applying these principles has been transformative. When I first started this journey, I was stuck, chasing a version of success that didn't feel right, feeling unfulfilled despite my achievements. But as I began to incorporate Jim Rohn's teachings into my life, everything changed. I started with discipline, committing to small daily actions like writing 100 words a day toward my book. I added self-reflection, journaling every evening to evaluate my progress and adjust my course. I invested in continuous learning, reading books, taking courses, and seeking out new knowledge. I surrounded myself with supportive relationships, joining communities of like-minded people who inspired me to grow. I set clear goals, writing them down, making them specific, and reviewing them regularly. And I took personal responsibility, stopping the blame game and taking ownership of my life. The result? I'm not the same person I was a few years ago. I've written that book I always dreamed of, I've built a career I love, and I've created a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling. And the best part? It didn't happen overnight. It happened one step at a time, one milestone at a time, as I walked this journey with Jim Rohn's principles as my guide. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still have days when I struggle, when I fall off track, when I doubt myself. But I've learned that success isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, growing, and moving forward even when it's hard. Now, I want to help you apply these principles in your own life with a 30-day challenge I'm calling the Success Journey Challenge. Over the next 30 days, I want you to take one small action each day to incorporate Jim Rohn's 6 principles into your life. Here's how it works. Each week, we'll focus on a different milestone with a daily action to help you build that principle into your routine. By the end of the 30 days, you'll have a solid foundation to continue your journey to success. Ready? Let's break it down. For the first 5 days, we'll focus on personal discipline. Each day, I want you to pick one small action to do consistently, something that moves you toward a goal you care about. It could be drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, writing for 10 minutes, or taking a 5-minute walk. The key is to do it every day, no matter what. Write down your action, set a reminder, and commit to showing up for 5 days straight. For the next 5 days, days 6 through 10, we'll focus on self-reflection. Each evening, I want you to spend 5 minutes journaling about your day. Write down 3 things: what went well, what didn't go well, and one thing you can do better tomorrow. This simple practice will help you gain clarity, spot patterns, and make adjustments to keep growing. If you're not sure what to write, just start with something simple, like how you felt, what you accomplished, or a challenge you faced. The goal is to get into the habit of reflecting regularly so you can stay on track with your journey. For days 11 through 15, we'll shift to continuous learning. Each day, I want you to spend 10 minutes learning something new. It could be reading a few pages of a book, watching an educational video, or listening to a podcast, whatever interests you. Pick a topic you're curious about, whether it's a skill like cooking or a subject like personal finance, and commit to learning a little bit each day. By the end of these 5 days, you'll have started a learning habit that can keep you growing for years to come. For days 16 through 20, we'll focus on relationships. Each day, I want you to reach out to one person who inspires you or supports your growth. It could be a friend, a mentor, a colleague, anyone who lifts you up. Send them a message, give them a call, or meet up for coffee if you can. Tell them about your journey, share your goals, or just thank them for being a positive influence in your life. The goal is to strengthen your connections with people who help you grow and to start building a tribe that supports your success. For days 21 through 25, we'll work on setting clear goals. Each day, I want you to spend a few minutes reviewing and refining your goals. If you haven't set a goal yet, use the first day to write one down. Make it specific, like, I will save $1,000 by the end of the year by setting aside $85 each month. Then, for the next 4 days, break that goal into smaller steps and take one action each day to move toward it. For example, if your goal is to save money, you might open a savings account one day, set up an automatic transfer the next, and so on. By the end of these 5 days, you'll have a clear roadmap to guide your actions. Finally, for days 26 through 30, we'll focus on personal responsibility. Each day, I want you to identify one area of your life where you've been making excuses and take one small action to take ownership of it. For example, if you've been saying, "I can't exercise because I don't have time," reframe it as, "I will make time to exercise because my health matters." Then take a small step, like going for a 10-minute walk or doing a quick stretch. The goal is to practice taking responsibility for your choices and results, so you can feel empowered to shape your own destiny. By the end of this 30-day success journey challenge, you'll have taken small, consistent actions to incorporate all 6 of Jim Rohn's principles into your life. You'll have built a foundation of discipline, gained clarity through self-reflection, expanded your mind with continuous learning, strengthened your relationships, set clear goals, and taken responsibility for your journey. And here's the best part. These 30 days are just the beginning. The habits you build during this challenge can carry you forward for the rest of your life, helping you create a future that's full of purpose, growth, and fulfillment. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final reflection, a deeper philosophical thought about what success really means. Jim Rohn used to say, "Success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become." In other words, success isn't about chasing external things like money, fame, or status. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts those things through your growth, your character, and your actions. When you focus on becoming your best self, through discipline, reflection, learning, relationships, goals, and responsibility, success becomes a byproduct of who you are. That's the true beauty of this journey. It's not just about where you end up, but about who you become along the way. So, where do you go from here? I encourage you to start your Success Journey Challenge today. Take that first step. Pick your small daily action for discipline and commit to showing up for the next 30 days. And as you go, I'd love to hear about your progress. Leave a comment below and let me know. What's the first action you're going to take? How are you feeling about this journey? And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need a little inspiration on their own journey. Together, we can keep growing, keep learning, and keep moving toward a life of success on our own terms. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'll see you in the next video.